Why are we telling the story now?
That's when we found out obviously what was going on, and we made a really quick decision to launch the REVL brand.
REVL started peak COVID, and so this studio just up the road is one of the first locations, one of the original 4. How can we show up better, more frequently for our members, and then how can we do that for our studio owners as well? And yeah, I remember just rolling up one morning, parked my car there, didn't even think about it. I'm in the studio, and I came out, and my car was gone. I was like,
This is probably the first time we've actually had the time and space to sit back and reflect on what we've achieved, I guess, over the last 6 years. I think we definitely are our biggest critics. And so I think now that we've built out a full HQ team, we've scaled across, 6, 7 markets, across the world. We now actually have the time and space to sit back and go, how did we just do that? And how do we replicate that for the future?
Josh and I have spent a lot of time in the fitness industry over the last 15 years or so, and there's been a lot of methodologies and training models that have come and gone throughout that time, and what we've done is created the best of the best inside of what REVL is. And we knew when we trained our clients and the type of fitness we were doing at the time that there was no one creating this in a single physical location that could go on scale, from brand, the style of training, the sets and reps, the intensity that goes inside of our locations. And to package that up from essentially Josh and I 6 years ago and put that on, basically just put it in a little box and continue to develop. And 6 years later, we've added so many layers to that, from adding our team's methodology into it and all the ideas. But the reason we started to it was we had so much passion from a product standpoint and obviously a brand standpoint that we knew this thing could last if we got it right.
Yeah, and I think we have always just pushed energy in the right direction, right? So I think we saw a gap in the market. We believed we had a solution for that with our brand, with our product. And like you said, we're 2 of the most stubborn people you'll meet. So we just had this feeling that it would work and that the industry would head in this direction, the consumer would head in this direction, and they ultimately have. And we're now sitting here almost 6 years down the track, and literally the conversations we were having 6 years ago about where the industry and the member was going, they've now gone there. So, not saying we're fortune tellers, but we actually nailed our strategy 6 years ago. I think now, just naturally, the goalposts shift. You want to have more impact, and we want to expand this thing all over the world.
I think also, in that period, everyone was telling us it's a competitive space. You sure want to do
absolutely.
it. But you and I both did not think it was a competitive space in this segment of the industry. The 2 other layers, either side of it, from a HIIT training and obviously a CrossFit or 24/7 modality, saturated. Whereas we felt that we created our own niche and our own market for the clients that were heading into that space. And that was 5 or 6 years ago, before things like Hyrox and all these type of things came into the market. And we feel like the industry's developed to where it needed to be, and we're not necessarily, we're the pioneers at the start, and now we're one of the key dominant players in that space. When we started REVL in 2020, we built this strategic document called Define the Gap, and that was essentially to be first to market in a space that didn't exist. And that space was in between high intensity, low skill modalities out there, and then high skill, high intensity modalities. And we felt that we had the perfect blend of a training stimulus for that in the market, which people could train like athletes, they could perform like athletes, they could also see constant progression, but also be attached to a really strong sporting style community of REVL. And what we've done on scale over the last 6 years is built that across every single one of our locations, across every single market. And I think that's core to why REVL exists, is like-minded people constantly striving for progression, but also giving them the platform to go and earn as well.
Yeah, I think a big part of that Define the Gap strategy was essentially for us to be the biggest player in that space in the market by the time everyone had caught up to our style of training. And we never wanted to label or bring a term to, I guess, our gap in the market, i.e. like your CrossFit, etc. We wanted to invite other competitors and other brands into the space because we knew that would just bring the consumer closer to us. And I think for us, it was really just about being the pioneer in that space, which we've successfully done. It's crazy to think, like, just upon reflection, it was a few pages long, right? It was just like a Google Doc that we shared between the two of us. And it's crazy to think that we've actually gone and executed that strategy. It's one of those things you kind of write, you build and you put some time and energy into, and then you don't look at it for the next however long, you know, and we kind of just pushed and pushed and pushed. So yeah, I think upon reflection, it's crazy to think we've gone and executed and we've hit some of those targets. And I think the goalposts have always shifted. I think as we saw a bigger product to market fit and really organic growth, it kind of just sped up and expanded. But I think the other part to, I guess, why REVL, you know, we wanted to create firstly a product that resonated with our coaches. It was really important for us to build something that was a coaches-led product, right? Coaches shouldn't need to do, all these sessions off to the side, etc., to get the training stimulus they were after. If it was good enough for our coaching team, it was good enough for our members, and that's what we've delivered. I think the second part to that is we wanted to create an opportunity for coaches who are in a similar position to us, who wanted to own their own business or start their own studio and didn't know how. And so creating that opportunity for people who essentially were walking in our shoes once upon a time was really important to us. Yeah, it's been a big 6 years. I think the next 6 years looks like, you know, us harnessing where the market is now and where it's going, I guess, from a competition standpoint and I guess gamifying this style of training, but also our brand and our product needs to be in more communities around the world. Like ultimately, like that is a huge goal for us. We've seen the impact that we've had so far, and for us to not expand further, we feel like we're doing a bit of a disservice. I think part of the Define the Gap was to leave the industry in a better place than when we found it. And I think, you know, that's still a huge goal for us. I guess a key part of our strategy over the next 6 years is really showing up in our communities, both our franchise community, our studio owners, but also our members community. So I think running our events, activations, we've seen how much impact they have in such a short space of time. And I think, you know, the industry is busy with franchise businesses or boutique fitness. I think the category is broadly called, and I think you really need to get creative with how you serve your community. Why is someone going to pay you $70, $80 a week for a gym membership over the gym down the road? So I think it's really just addressing what are the client's needs and what are our franchisees' needs, and that's really our goal as a franchise business, right? We know we've got the brand locked down. We know we will continue to evolve and continue to deliver on the brand and the product. Then it just comes down to how we serve our community. Yeah, I think where we thought it would get to, I think definitely in the early days, all the conversations were around keeping the network really small, really boutique, and having a really close, tight-knit community. I think as we've grown throughout the years, the business has grown, the market's shifted, etc. I think the conversations, both with incoming franchisees and then, amongst ourselves, are we can actually have more impact on scale. And we have figured out a way over the last 6 years to not water down our product, not water down our brand, and still deliver the same style of training and the same brand promise, I guess, at scale. And all that means is that the franchisees that come on board, the coaches who work inside our network, and the members who are members underneath the REVL banner essentially get access to more. They actually get access to a whole network of peers, but also events, activations, apparel, challenges throughout the year and all sorts of stuff, right? And so I think there's been this kind of shift, definitely inside our business, but inside the market as well. When franchising is executed well, it doesn't have to be this mass market product like a KFC or a McDonald's, right? Like it can still remain a boutique franchise look and feel boutique, but also have significant impact. And I think we didn't anticipate, I guess, being able to execute that on the scale we have. So that's exciting, because it means that our next couple of hundred locations, we know we can still nail the same brand, the same product, the same REVL feeling inside every single one of our studios.
Well, I think what was core at day one was, as a unit, we always used to train together. And that was key to those initial locations. And now that we've scaled that, we're still doing that with the initiatives and events. We're just doing it on a much larger scale. And I think that's what's core to how we've gone from where we started and been able to expand this style of training, this culture, this whole methodology that people buy into. And we've seen that across multiple corners of the globe.
The gap definitely still exists.
Big time.
It exists. We're filling it. And I think other brands are starting to fill it from different angles, which is great. We kind of need that. We need more consumers kind of brought closer towards REVL. We always think about a member's journey, even a coach's journey. And I think as soon as they have an experience inside REVL, it's very difficult to go to another brand or product, right? Unless you're going, up to CrossFit, you don't really go anywhere else. And so I think, yes, the gap still exists in the market. We are filling it, but I think it's going to take some time, and that's what excites us. I think speed to market in certain regions is really important, but also some markets around the world are not as progressed in the fitness space as we are here in Oz. We're quite fortunate. I think the US is also quite fortunate, but there are definitely parts of Europe that are fairly untouched with our style of training. And the opportunity is huge, and I think we're well positioned to execute.
There's so many moments inside of REVL that define it across that time, and I think the key one that stands out for me is being in Singapore 2.5 years ago, running the team games there. That they created that first event, which was huge. I think they had 600 people just watch the coaches on the Friday night, and then the next day we had close to 1,000 members doing the REVL team games in one facility, and watching them support each other, have all their banners, and I suppose it was kind of like a big sports day, an adult sports day. That there for me was like what we created day one in our community sessions, what we created day one in people trying to test 1 rep maxes and retest it, and seeing that happening in a whole complete different country with a community that was so bought in. For me, that was like, this is genuinely, we're onto something. I think we had 25 locations maybe at the time. 5 to 10 of those were in Singapore, and for me it was like, this actually makes sense, it works, people understand it, they're picking it up, but also they're elevating what we've created. And I think that was the moment that I thought, it's not about us always having to push this forward. It's like, let's give everyone the platform that they can actually fulfill their own dreams, and that might be opening their own location, running their own events, or even hitting a 1 rep max. And giving people the platform to go and achieve more, for me, was witnessed on that day, and that's what really motivated the next stage of growth, of going, okay, let's double down on that.
Yeah, I think any of our events and activations, like when you have a cohort of our network members, coaches, owners, etc., come through and really get around the brand, whatever we're doing, whether it's a global REVL Team Games event or something similar. I think all of those moments, really light the fire in your belly again to go further and to do more. I think one key defining moment for me was definitely when we jumped on the initial franchise call with Ollie in Singapore, and he essentially found REVL after doing an assignment at uni, where he had to find a gap in a particular market and find a brand that was solving that gap or filling that gap. And that's when he stumbled across REVL on social media and thought, this is the perfect brand and product for the gap in the market in the fitness industry, and essentially did his assignment on us. And he's gone on to open 17 locations in Singapore and become the master franchisee. So, and pioneer a lot of these events where we're talking about, the team games events, etc. So I think that for me was definitely like, do you know what? If this can work outside of Australia, like if we can take this to Singapore and for them to see the exact same gap we've been talking about for the last couple of years, we're onto something here. This is it.
Yeah.
Well, what's been pivotal to set REVL up for scale has really been at any point inside the business where we were out of our depth, which has been many times, we've always gone and sought advice, found an advisor, someone either in the space or an adjacent space that could essentially help us along the journey. And we've been very fortunate to have some of these advisors work with us without being paid for quite some time. And I think that came down to them buying into, I guess, our vision, us as founders, and what we're aiming to do. And so I think without some of that advice and without, I guess, us having the awareness to kind of reach out when we didn't know, what to do next, I think has been really pivotal. And then I think that flows into, I guess, the way we've set up the organizational structure. I think at any point we had the capacity to bring on staff to do things better than we ever did them. We did, probably a little bit too quickly sometimes. But I think that has really allowed, I guess, us to bring a really strong, or build a really strong org structure inside our HQ team of people who are really skilled in their area. And I think, you've said for a very long time, I just want to build a team of high performers. And looking back at us 6 years ago to now, like, we can confidently say that we've done that. And that shows up in our network performance. That shows up in the performance of our marketing campaigns, pre-opening campaigns, our B2B strategy that we're executing now, the content that we push out on a daily, weekly basis. And so I think both of those kind of tie into each other, and it's always been about the people that we can tap into to facilitate, I guess, our vision and our mission to go further.
It's always been the people. Like, I remember very, very early stages, and again, back to the advisors, the people that have been and paved this way before, whether it's different verticals, have pretty much really given us a tap on the shoulder and saying, like, what you shouldn't do in franchising. And being on the franchisee side for quite a few years before starting REVL, I knew what it felt like to be a franchisee, and for them to go and show and pave the way of what that should look and feel like, supporting unit economics, making sure your franchisees are happy, they are performing, you've got the systems and tools in place, is crucial before you just want to add more layers of locations. And we had that drilled into us in the very, very early stages with some of our advisors in the franchise space that, again, some of the work that they did for us, just for the love of essentially the relationships we had, were pivotal. And I remember the few of them saying, like, when you get big, don't forget about us, and we definitely won't. Like, and I think you and I are very humble around that. But the other key part is we're not too big to get out of the way of what we know that can fly and work if it's not up to us. And like you said, getting key staff in spaces that have got the skills, have the understanding, and buy into our vision makes this thing fly. Us always sitting in the seat and it being all about us is just never going to grow this. And we have the same thing happening at franchisee level when they want to develop and grow their staff and their team. And it's always been about, like, constant progression, always learning, and always being inquisitive about what growth looks like, and never going to sit still. We're never going to think we know everything. And as you grow into new markets, you add more layers to the business, you have more unit numbers, more members. There's so much learning that goes into it. And for us to facilitate every layer of that business requires us to grow and develop and put people in the right seats.
I think that's definitely it from an organisational level. I think our first dozen studio owners probably deserve a pretty big rap, and they took a huge punt on us in the early days. We were still figuring things out. We didn't know everything. We were still building the franchise model, refining studio layouts, equipment packs, all sorts of things, right? And so I think they really took a punt on us in the early days. And we're glad that we can return the favour, and those guys have gone on to be super successful. But you definitely need to find that core group at the start, like we did, that really believed in our mission, our vision, our brand, our style of training, and without them, I guess the brand wouldn't be here today.
Yeah, and that same core group are our top performing franchise partners. Yeah. They've hit maturity, they're still happy and content, but a lot of that stuff's been built out of their passion for what we do. Providing bottom up, top down feedback has been crucial to REVL's growth.
Yeah, and a lot of them have been involved in, I guess, our HQ organisation at some point in time as well. So it had a really big impact on, I guess, the development of the brand and product. What makes REVL something that, you know, people really want to be a part of really comes down to the way we build our communities. And I know everyone uses that word. Everyone says we've got a fantastic community and blah, blah, blah. I think where ours is different to the rest is that we unlock potential in the member. And so the ability for our members to go and achieve more, and they bond over a lot of these experiences, whether it's races like your High Rocks, whether they're our internal competitions, whether it's just going for a run on a Saturday, whatever. I think the way our communities are formed and the way they interact on a daily basis inside our studios is what makes it special. I think also secondary to that is, you know, we've always spoke about creating a coach's product. And I think in all of our studios, our coaches and owners are training alongside members, and that also makes it really special. You know, I can think of one studio off the top of my head that every single time I go there, it feels like a family as soon as I walk through those doors, and even members are walking up and giving you a hug and doing all that sort of stuff. And I think it comes back to REVL being that feeling. And I think that's probably the easiest way to describe it. It's, you know, everyone can say they've got the best program, the sleekest looking brand and all that sort of stuff. I think it's the combination of what we have and how it all interacts with each other.
Yeah, I liken the feeling to walking into REVL or being part of REVL as you walk in and you instantly feel like you've got someone there with you and supporting you, and that's like the coach, the new member that you've just met that becomes your best mate moving forward. But because the style of training that we do is not easy, and people actually bond through it. So whether they're doing a max ski effort or a max meter type effort and they're working together, they're putting their absolute output in, and so is the person next to them, so is the person next to them. And when they achieve that or finish the workout, instantly they've got that feeling of we achieved that together, and we do that across the whole brand. So I think that's probably one of the biggest special feelings around REVL, and we see it across all of our initiatives and events. At the end, we go and celebrate as a team, we go and do the parties and that type of thing, and our communities are doing that weekly, daily, getting coffee after workouts, and it's not just about the workout, but they're fitter, healthier, showing up better for their work and family, but also seeing some really big movement in their fitness.
Well, I guess the idea of uncapped progression has always been something we've aimed to develop inside our program. 4 13-week training blocks throughout the year, periodized, using percentages of either a 1 rep max or a 3 rep max, has essentially allowed us to personalize the session to the member based on their testing results, right? So we've got members who have been with us for almost 6 years, with coaches that have been in the network for 6 years, and they're still seeing progression through some of their lifts or in their fitness. And so I think that's really important for us. I think we've always set out to extend the lifespan, the average lifespan of a REVL member. And I think, providing enough progression inside our 4 walls has always been the goal, has always been a passion of ours.
Yeah, and that's through variation of movements. We're adding new movements in all the time, different events that we're running as well, that people can go and showcase their fitness, and it's so key to what we do. And we do the same thing at a business level. There's always progression. We're doing 13-week business plans with franchise partners to go and retest and set their new goals and benchmarks, and the whole way through the brand, that's so apparent.
And I think underpinning all that, it's not like we're not creating a new training modality, right? Like, these principles have been around for a very long time. I think what we've done, and we've done very well and successfully, is packaging that up, I guess, in a franchise model for starters, but also in a group training environment. People can now get a PT-like session or service inside a group setting. And I think if we look back at our Define the Gap strategy 6 years ago, that was actually written in there, that we wanted to create a personalised group training environment. And I think we've done that. It's a key point of difference for us, and it also just allows the REVL member to continue coming back every 13 weeks and test and retest and see progression over the years. What's next for REVL? A lot of exciting things, but I think above all else is innovation for us. We're continually innovating, and I think that's super important, especially pioneering this space in the industry.
Expansion. I think expansion, we need more of these locations around the world. We need to have a larger footprint, more impact, and to really just, really get behind more communities globally. And then I think the third thing is just doubling down on what we know works. I think learning from what we've done over the last 6 years, I think we've got the real opportunity to really back our strategy, both on the B2C side and B2B side. So, how can we show up better, more frequently for our members, and then how can we do that for our studio owners as well? It's exciting. I think we've got a lot of big projects on the cards, and I think, above all else, I think we're going to have a significant growth in studio numbers in a short space of time, and we're going to see some exciting events and changes to the REVL product.
Yeah, it's exciting because getting to where we are today with the 50 locations, 10,000 members, the goal is to double that in the next 2 years. And we're pretty bullish around that. And that means that we're keeping the same community, the same culture, all embedded together, but we're just expanding that on scale.